But continuing on with the MCU, we did find out sort of another rumor that's swirling. Again, nothing that's confirmed, but according to World of Real, George Miller, director of Furiosa, a Mad Max saga, and of course Mad Max Fury Road, recently apparently has shown interest in directing some upcoming sequels for Marvel, which included our Thor 5 and potentially a Hulk movie. And so the article, Jordan Ruyame, or excuse me, I don't know how to pronounce his name, but the writer of the article said, basically, quote this: last night, a listing on Production Weekly had World War Hulk shooting in 2025. I decided to reach out to a few of my sources and confirm this bit of news, and what I got was quite a lot of information. Although plans are not official at the moment, the goal is indeed to shoot the film this year, says Jordan. He continues, Mark Ruffalo is set to come back to the titular role, and his character will have a very busy year as this coming February's Captain America Brave New World will set up World War Hulk for him, and a few months later, Thunderbolts will be the connecting branch for the character's first solo MCU movie, end quote. There's another part of this story we'll get to in a second, but that in and of itself, there's a lot. There's a lot there. One being George Miller potentially being the person that wants to direct this. That's a thing. George Miller also wanting potentially to direct Thor 5, once again working with Chris Hemsworth, who he did with Furiosa. And then the idea that there is potentially a World War Hulk movie that's slated to shoot this year, which would be an incredible fast track for a film, especially considering we haven't heard really a thing about this at all. There have been rumors that Mark Ruffalo is supposed to show up in Captain America Brave New World. I don't know how big his role will be. Right. This also states that there's going to be connecting tissue with Thunderbolts as well when that drops later this spring. Lots to digest here. What are your thoughts? Because this could be massive implications, especially coming before we get to these two Avengers movies, as we've already alluded to with Doomsday and Secret Wars. What are your thoughts on this?
I don't even know where to start, to be honest, because what is going on here? There's so much. The George Miller of it all, huh? What? George Miller directing a Hulk or a Thor and Hulk movie? I don't even. If this is really to happen, I honestly can't even imagine it happening. Like, I just have to see it kind of play out. What I will say, I would be really excited to see Marvel finally, I think, give one of those respected filmmakers one of their properties, kind of similar to what they did with Sam Raimi and Multiverse of Madness, right? Like, I really like that movie. I would love to see a George Miller take on Hulk or Thor, because it would be very much, we know how good George Miller is at making films. It's like, okay, cool, let's do some George Miller shit with those things. And I know George Miller would also take those movies very seriously, as long as they let him, right? And I think it's kind of a really cool concept and idea. I really hope something happens there. It doesn't have to be both movies per se, but one or the other. I think I would be kind of here for it. World War Hulk shooting in 2025. I don't even know how that's possible. Like you said, this would be a very fast track thing. Maybe this is another one of those storylines where it's needed for Doomsday, right? So they have to fast track it. They're like, we have a Hulk idea, just like in a similar form of fashion, how we've been talking about Spider-Man. They're like, we got to move on Spider-Man. Maybe this is just one of those things where we're like, we need Hulk in this specific position for this story element that we have in Doomsday. We have to fast track a Hulk movie. And it's what's really interesting about it too is they've always kind of been setting up World War Hulk stuff, but never done anything with it. Like, Ragnarok has a ton of World War Hulk in it. Even some of the stuff at the end of She-Hulk was like, there's some World War Hulk stuff in DNA in some of these projects. What are we doing with it? We haven't done anything with it. Instead, we just continue to sideline Mark Ruffalo and the Hulk as a character. So I'd be interested. Maybe they have something here. I think part of me is a little worried of fast tracking a World War Hulk movie a little bit, just because I'm like, oh my god, I hope y'all make it good. But I think I'm still kind of here for it. We are way overdue for a solo Hulk film. If we can do it this soon, yeah, I'm kind of here to just be like, yeah, let's get a Hulk movie on the ground. I would love to see it. So yeah, man, like you said, there's a lot here. I don't know how much he is going to have in Captain America. Part of me does want to see Red Hulk versus Green Hulk. I know we've been doing the mirrors for too long when it comes to villains and things like that. Part of me is like, shoot, let's. I wouldn't mind seeing that. But yeah, man, it's really weird to kind of think about and very fresh on my mind. But yeah, those are my thoughts so far.
First of all, George Miller, if he were to do this, I'm here for it. George Miller was long developing a Justice League Dark movie before it got canned. It's
Mm-hmm.
one of the biggest what if stories in Hollywood history. He
Yeah,
was
very true.
very much going to make a Justice League movie. It didn't happen. He's made it very clear he's a fan of these movies. He's talked
Mm-hmm.
about watching all the Marvel movies. He likes this material. And George Miller, you know, outside of the Mad Max movie, he's done commercial stuff. He's directed Happy Feet and Babe and these other, you know,
Right.
properties that you wouldn't necessarily associate with him, but he has a hand at that stuff. So if he were to come in and do a one-off with either property, I'm down for it. The World War Hulk stuff, I'm very, very loud in my opinion that, you know, Mark Ruffalo has been done great disservice with this character for a long time
Mm-hmm.
now and has been sidelined and just not given meatier, juicier stuff to
Yeah.
work with. I mean, they've tried to take some interesting routes and change up the character and do the smart Hulk stuff, and it was okay, but nobody really wants to see that anymore. We want to see the brooding, you know, sort of angry Hulk that we're known to do, because there are multiple levels that you can achieve with that character in that respect, and we just haven't explored that stuff. There's so
Mm-hmm.
many, you know, sort of storylines and a lot of potential, and I'm just tired of him just being on the sidelines, not being an important factor in this universe when he should be, especially considering that we've been without Iron Man and Captain America proper, you know, for a number of years now. So this should be the direction that they go in. And if they do get this movie off the ground this year, if it turns out to be true that he's in Captain America Brave New World and that they further, you know, establish connective tissue and Thunderbolts, it makes all the sense. You have all the build up and lead up that you need to make a Hulk movie, because
Yeah.
then it won't come out of nowhere. If they set the seeds in these two movies beforehand and we
Mm-hmm.
just don't know it, and then, you know, come, I don't know, 2026, we get a Hulk movie at some point down the line, maybe the end of 2026, then maybe it makes all the sense. Maybe perhaps it's not a Hulk movie at all, and maybe he's just another piece of all these movies, but he's the single through line of,
Mm.
you know, a continuing set of movies, because there's also the legal ramifications that are wrapped up in this too, in this whole
Right.
thing too. That's
Right.
why we haven't gotten a Hulk movie, because of the whole legal dispute and the licensing issues between Universal and Marvel. They legally have not been able to make a Hulk movie without giving all the revenue over to Universal, which, you know, why would they want to
Mm-hmm.
do that? So they do have to be creative in that respect, unless they figured out something, unless they reached a deal underneath the table that we just don't know about, which is also
Mm-hmm.
very possible. But yeah, I think I want this stuff to really, really be true, but we've been speculating about it for so long. It's hard to believe anything until you actually do see it. Now, this other piece of news is related to this very much so, but, you know, after Jeff Snyder broke this news, he went on his show with John Roca, and they continued to talk about it. And John Roca himself also got a bit of news that he let spill out there, again, related to the Hulk and his future and what that might look like in the MCU. And he said this on his show, quote, "From what I hear from a very strong source in the business, the plan for the new Spider-Man movie was Spider-Man fighting the Hulk with the Punisher. So it
Mm.
was going to be ground-based, but he was going to fight the Hulk because Marvel wants to move away from the intelligent Hulk that we saw in Avengers movies and make him much more of the brutish Hulk, the violent Hulk, the rage Hulk. That seems to be the approach that they want to go in," end quote. So now you take all of that news that we just talked about, and now it's connected potentially to Spider-Man 4, which we know is also in development, slated to come out in July of 2026. They've been talking a lot about the script. We've been speculating about the direction of that movie. Is it going to be cosmic, multiversal based? Is it going to be
Mm-hmm.
ground based? Is it going to be in the middle? Who knows? Who knows who the villain's going to be? There's so many elements to even to that film that draws a lot of questions. Mind you, also, it comes out in between Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret Wars. So this whole thing, I think, does have some credence, because we are talking about just the connective tissue and sort of the offspring of those two movies and how they're going to affect other properties
Mm-hmm.
over the course of the next coming years. One of our big concerns when we found out about Doomsday was the build up. How do you get to that? How do you
Yeah.
build up to those
Mm-hmm.
movies in that event when we haven't really had any proper build up over the past like 5 years? Perhaps this is the way to do it. But what are your thoughts about Hulk potentially being in Spider-Man 4, maybe as the villain of the movie? And
Mm.
even the idea that Spider-Man and Punisher, who is coming back now, John Bernthal will be returning as Punisher, might be the two to team up and tackle the Hulk in New York City and make it a more quote-unquote ground-based movie.
What is the Punisher gonna do against the Hulk? I need to know. But no, I am really interested in if all this can be possible and is going down. I have this, like, I don't know, just interesting to me. It's like, it's almost like, if you can't get Venom, what other big thing, you know what I'm saying, can
Yep.
you get in a movie? And it's like, yeah, let's go get the Hulk. Because you kind of, what's really interesting about that, it's like our Sony character and our Universal character. You know what I'm saying? It's not even like Marvel proper, if that makes sense. I think that's so interesting. But I think that's a cool concept, and I do like the idea of moving away from intelligent Hulk. And in a lot of ways, I even like the idea that, like, again, Hulk doesn't know nobody knows who Spider-Man is anymore. So it's not like Spider-Man can talk him down, but Spider-Man is going to know who Hulk is. I don't know. I feel like there's some really cool story elements that exist there that they can play with. And like, I like the idea of Bruce just kind of losing his shit. And like, these movies sometimes don't have to be that hard. You know what I'm saying? Like, we don't have to think too hard. Like, maybe Bruce just loses his shit. He's in New York. Spider-Man has to do something about it. What is he going to do? And part of me likes that premise. But yeah, I would be here for it, man. I think it's a really cool rumor. Part of me hopes it's true. I like that it is more grounded, because Doomsday stuff is about to get ridiculous. Like, it really is. Like, part of me almost feels like that's also the reason, like, this year's Captain America and Thunderbolts, because it's everything else is like Fantastic Four and on is going to be like, okay, we are in some crazy shit right now. What is happening? And so I am kind of excited. I would be excited to see Spider-Man on the ground, just kind of fighting Hulk. Like you said, Punisher is coming back. That whole world is going to be connected between Punisher, Daredevil, all of that stuff. I'm sure there'll be other cameos in that film. I think it's a cool idea, and I hope this is one of those rumors. I'm like, this is interesting. What do you mean by that? Like, let's keep talking about this. But yeah, I think some cool ideas here.
Yeah, I don't know how grounded Hulk is. I think we have to say that loosely.
Yeah,
I guess
sure.
compared to some other
Galactic
characters.
shit is what I meant. Yeah,
Yeah,
non-galactic.
but it's one of those things where it's like, I mean, if they're doing Hulk versus Spider-Man and they're just like tearing up New York City, that's gonna be pretty massive. But World War Hulk, a lot of that does take place in New York, and
Mm-hmm.
perhaps they are shoehorning that movie into Spider-Man 4 because, again, I don't know if they can make that movie by itself, a World War Hulk movie by itself. I don't think that they can necessarily. I mean, they could, but I don't think it's smart business to do that. But if they
Mm-hmm.
can make that the primary story of Spider-Man 4, and give equal footing to both Hulk, Bruce, and Peter and Spider-Man, then that could make sense, and that could be really interesting and enticing. We had conversations about who the villain in Spider-Man 4 was going to be, and we
Yeah.
really couldn't come up with any names because they've used a lot of the big ones, and then Sony prohibits them from using the characters that they've already made shitty
Mm-hmm.
movies out of, and so you kind of are left with slim pickings. There's also this a part of the negotiations and the contract, and I read this in the contract between Marvel and Sony, is the fact that one of the agreement points is that in every Sony Marvel produced Spider-Man movie, there has to be basically a co-lead or a co-appearance from an MCU character, which is why in
Mm-hmm.
Spider-Man Homecoming you get Robert Downey Jr., in Spider-Man
Mm-hmm.
Far From Home you get Nick Fury, and in Spider-Man No Way Home you get Doctor Strange. That's
Mm-hmm.
contractually a part of their conversations and a part of the agreement that, hey, we're going to make this movie, you can produce it, but you also have to make sure that one of the MCU characters is a large part of the feature film.
Yeah.
And if that is to be true, then the Hulk fulfills that obligation as well.
Easy.
That's also
Mm-hmm.
like an easy way to get him in the movie and say, like, okay, here's the MCU proper character, and he's going to be in this movie alongside Spider-Man. Plus, he's also the villain of the movie, the main antagonist. And we're giving you Punisher as well on top of that. That's like another make good, another way to bring him in. Now, it all sounds really good to me. I'd definitely be here for it. When I was thinking about Grounded, when we were first having this conversation, I'm thinking
Yeah.
like Spider-Man, Daredevil against Kingpin. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
I'm like, he's like mayor of New York. They're fighting for the
Mm-hmm.
soul of New York
For sure.
City. It's just like small time criminals. But if they go this direction to give Hulk more screen time and to make him a bigger presence, especially before we get to Secret Wars and Doomsday, then I think that actually that's a good way to go. I think that makes a lot of sense and a really effective way to make him even more important in the ways that we just haven't seen him be over the past, just a long time. It's just been a long time since he's been really, I think, an effective force in the MCU ever since those early days when he was first, sort of portrayed by Mark Ruffalo. So I'm hoping that this does have some truth to it, but it's going to be a very busy couple of years. I mean, there's a lot of movies coming out, and there's a lot to do, especially connecting us to Doomsday and Secret War. So once we get Captain America in a few weeks here, hopefully that can tell us and signal to us like where things might be heading in terms of just the immediate future with how we're going to close out this multiversal saga. So we'll certainly have to see.